It's Thursday, July 28. In the headlines, Zozo's extended for another 60 days. Dembi Agricultural Show is on this weekend. Regionally, Barbados' fuel prices tripled. Internationally, earthquake in northern Philippines. And in sports, World Athletics to introduce a repechage round 2 track events. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The public is being invited to the Ministry of Transport and Mining's Jamaica 60 exposition on Friday, July 29 at the Police Officers Club on Hope Road in Kingston. The event is part of the Jamaica 60 celebrations and will be held under the theme, The Embers of Evolution, Fuel for the Future. MTM's Director of Public Relations and Communications, Nayoka Linton, says there will also be displays from some of the ministry's stakeholders, such as the management company for the Norman Manley International Airport, Windalco, and Discovery Bauxite Operations Limited, formerly Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners. She says the event will run from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and there will be a kiddies section to keep children occupied and entertained while their parents enjoy the expo. Small ruminant farmers and those interested in getting involved in rearing sheep and goats are being urged to attend the Dembi Agriculture and Industrial Food Show, taking place over 3 days beginning July 30, 2022. Marlon Samuels reports.
Women and youngsters are being urged to enter Jamaica's small ruminant industry, which includes goat, sheep and rabbits.
This goat and sheep thing has predominantly been a man's world, but more and more we see women, and I'm getting more calls about women who want to become involved in goat and sheep rearing, and also rabbit rearing. There's quite a few women who are involved in rabbit rearing also.
Those interested in getting involved in rearing sheep, goats and rabbits are being urged to attend the Dembi Agricultural and Industrial Food Show, taking place over 3 days beginning Saturday, July 30, 2022.
It showcases the farmer. It highlights the farmer. The farmers now going to be able to meet customers and meet other farmers. The networking is going to happen. Cluster groups are going to become stronger because cluster groups in goat and sheep and rabbit rearing is very, very important because among the cluster groups, they look at each other, they criticize each other, they talk about each other's farm, and they try to compete and improve the genetics, improve their farm, and they also exchange ideas and even where health conditions, and they can help each other. So this is something that helps cluster group, and it also helps to grow the industry.
Judging is actually an avenue whereby we use this avenue for farmers to improve their livestock, whether it be by meat production or by milk production. The key thing is to look for the animal's conformation, the capacity of the animal to bear kids, the capacity of the animal to produce meat, the capacity of the animal to produce milk as well.
The fee for small ruminant farmers wanting to enter the competition at the Dembi Agricultural Show on July 30 is reportedly $200. They have to complete an application form, which can be had from the Jamaica Agricultural Society or online. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Parliament on Tuesday approved the extension of zones of special operations, ZOZOs, for an additional 60 days in several communities across the country. They include Parade Gardens, August Town and Denham Town communities in Kingston and St. Andrew, Mount Salem and Norwood Town in St. James, and Savannah Lamar in Westmoreland. Speaking in the House on Tuesday, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang said since these ZOZOs have been established, there has been significant achievements in terms of the services deployed and the overall improvement in community safety. Dr. Chang notes that all communities recorded a 48% and 55% reduction in shootings and murders, respectively. He says an evaluation will be done.
An examination will be taken of in particular Mount Salem to see what the next step will be in the development of this concept. While Greenwich Town, August Town, Norwood, Parade Gardens, and Savannah Lamar will continue the whole phase for this period of extension.
He further explained that the ministry will be looking at the quality of state services provided in these areas.
Holistic approach, we have to look at how they have been served by the schools, where schools exist, in particular infant and primary schools. We'll examine the work of the Social Development Commission, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and the availability of access to health care in all these communities.
He notes the social intervention programs being implemented through the Jamaica Social Investment Fund and other ministries.
Mount Salem and Denham Town have undergone 3 years of the intervention and now anchored in the build phase. They would have benefited from a greater concentration of social intervention activities of the physical kind, have been immersed in the build phase since February 2018 and March 2018 respectively. Since then, the communities have largely experienced significant improvements in infrastructure works. The social intervention framework applied to these communities, though not a one-size-fits-all approach, sought to utilize an integrated approach built on 2 pillars. 1, crime prevention through environmental design, which focuses on urban upgrading to the physical and environmental spaces to reduce opportunity for crime. 2, crime prevention through social development, seeking to address the underlying human and social risk factors of crime and violence and human capital development. That is, to identify services, youth livelihood development, via skills training and enterprise creation, capacity building of governance structures, including neighborhood watches and youth recreation.
Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang, in addressing the sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday afternoon, says the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act 2022 will address deficiencies overlooked in the Firearms Act of 1967. Raquel Robinson reports.
Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang says the new act will address multiple facets of the criminal justice system.
Madam Speaker, the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction, Regulation Act 2022 seeks to repeal and replace the Firearms Act of 1967. We're bringing it to make it much more relevant and bring it to the current situation. It addresses the current criminal landscape in Jamaica and presents a strong response to the proliferation of illegal firearms within our jurisdiction. The bill establishes a dual regime.
He says there are no clear-cut distinctions between firearms to provide more clarity.
It distinguishes between prohibited weapons or unregulated firearms and activities connected thereto, such as illicit trafficking, diversion, manufacture, stockpiling, possession, and the firearms that are duly authorized or registered, with notable improvements for the regulation and enforcement of the firearm industry.
Minister Chang notes that clamping down and enforcing penalties are essential in the fight against guns.
The bill therefore has almost 3 contrasting features. They need to bring this bill in place so as to generate legislation which would provide very strong penalties to those who operate, are held in possession of, are involved in the trading, manufacturing, or stockpiling of an illegal firearm, which we are now defined as a prohibited weapon in society. It needs strong laws. We recognize us pushing the boundaries of our legal tradition, but we think it was a necessary, absolute necessary to bring this in at this time.
According to the government's website, the Firearms Act is an act to regulate and control the circulation and use of firearms and ammunition, and for purposes incidental to or connected with any of the foregoing purposes specified by the government. The legal area for the Act is the defense and national security, with the first operational date being March 16, 1967. The last amendment made to the bill was on January 1, 2010. Reporting for PBCJ News, I'm Raquel Robinson.
Pan American Health Organization PAHO member countries are being urged to ensure their hospitals are adequately prepared to care for an anticipated influx of patients. PAHO's director, Dr. Carissa Etienne, says while COVID-19 cases across the region have broadly decreased for the first time in 5 weeks, that's not the case in some other countries. Her remarks were delivered by Deputy Director Mary Lou Valdez during PAHO's COVID-19 digital media briefing on Wednesday.
In Central America, COVID infections are climbing in Costa Rica and Honduras. We're seeing cases continue to increase in some countries in South America, with the largest surges reported in Bolivia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Peru. And in the Caribbean, Cuba, Guadeloupe, French Guiana, and Trinidad and Tobago continue to observe increasing COVID-19 hospitalizations and ICU admissions.
PAHO says the Omicron BA4 and BA5 sublineages are becoming the predominant strains in the region and deemed responsible for a growing number of COVID cases in the Americas, as is occurring in several European countries.
Because these strains are more transmissible than the original SARS-CoV-2 strain, social distancing and mask wearing are still effective means to limit COVID spread. Countries, especially those with lagging vaccination coverage, should brace themselves and ensure that their hospitals are adequately prepared to care for an influx of COVID patients. Without adequate vaccination, we leave ourselves and our families vulnerable to this evolving virus.
Dr. Etienne is currently on the island for a 4-day visit. In the business report, gas prices are down. We'll tell you by how much and report your regular market updates. Danita Rodney is at the business desk.
Motorists will once again pay less for gas when they go to the pumps, as state-owned oil refinery Petrojam says E10 87 is to move down by 25 cents to sell for $214.14 per liter, and a liter of E10 90 down by 25 cents to sell for $219.15. Also down by 25 cents, automotive diesel oil will sell for $229.51. Ultra-low sulfur diesel will sell for $232.24 per liter, following the 25 cents decrease. And the price of kerosene, down by 25 cents, will sell for $203.80. In the meantime, propane cooking gas will go down by $2.85 to sell for $67.09, while butane will move up by 25 cents to sell for $75.56 per liter. Remember, retailers will add their own markups to the announced prices. Major businesses in Jamaica are struggling to fill job vacancies due, in part, to the unwillingness of workers to return to jobs they lost at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic for the same pay. Speaking during the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce's second quarter business confidence webinar, Philip Ramson, managing director of Chaz E. Ramson, said that people are demanding more because the cost of living has gone up and they are not willing to work for what they were working for pre-pandemic.
Finding skilled labor is a challenge. And I know that a lot of people had to find alternative work when the pandemic hit, but I also think certain industries have grown. Tourism right now is very, very strong in terms of occupancies in the hotels. The demand for labor is there, and they're struggling to get through. The call center business has grown rapidly, and that is taking up a lot of labor. But it is definitely a challenge. And I think people are also demanding more. I think cost of living has gone up substantially, and that people are not willing to work for what they were working for pre-pandemic. And as business owners, I think that we have to adjust our packages to reflect the needs of the employee. I mean, as simple as this, just to get to and from work, provide lunch for the day, that kind of thing is things that we have to look into to assist in the staffing, because that is a challenge, and I think that is something that we're going to struggle with for the foreseeable future.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, July 27, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.25. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $120.85. The pound sterling traded for $186.21, and the euro sold for an average of $158.16. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Wednesday's trading session. The JSE index declined by 599 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 46 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 138 points to close at over 300,000 units. And the All-Jamaican Composite Index declined by 816 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 113 stocks, of which 47 advanced, 49 declined, and 17 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share, EPIL Limited 5% Preference Shares, and ISP Finance Services Limited. The overall volume leaders were Forstridge Company Limited with over 4 million units, Wigson Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 2 million units. In regional stocks in Trinidad and Tobago, zero securities were traded. The Barbados Stock Exchange also traded zero securities. In regional news, it's being called historic and one of the biggest financing deals Guyana has ever seen. On Wednesday, Guyana and the United States Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, signed a memorandum of understanding to finance projects in Guyana outside of oil and gas for up to an initial $2 billion.
In this development phase of our country, we want to see greater U.S. participation, not only from the government, but from the private sector. One of the inhibitive factors has always been the ease of access to financing and the barriers to financing. This today is the single most important signal, not only for Guyana, but for the region. The United States, through one of its agencies, the Exim Bank, is serious about the commitment and promise to this region, Caribbean region. This signal is an open invitation to the private sector and leadership of both countries to now move progressively forward on a platform that is supported by the government of Guyana and the Exim Bank.
In market data for oil rose more than $2 a barrel, extending gains from the previous session, buoyed by improved risk appetite among investors. Brent crude futures rose $2.09 to $108.71, and West Texas Intermediate crude was at $99.62 a barrel, up $2.36. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Denita Rodney.
In regional news, we start with Barbados. Government's fuel import bill nearly tripled in the first quarter of this year when compared to the same period last year. That's the word from Minister of Energy and Business, Kerry Simmons, as he cautioned that it could further rise.
In the first 4 months of last year, this country spent $162 million on importing petroleum product into this country. In the first 4 months of last year. This year, in the first 4 months, we spent $455 million in importing petroleum product, as opposed to $162 million over the same period of time last year. That statistic alone tells you the nature of the uphill battle this little island is in order to maintain the quality of life the standard of living, all the things that we have become accustomed to, all of which are fueled by the fuel that we import, the petroleum product that we import. And the cost of it has escalated alarmingly, and unfortunately is likely and is projected to continue to escalate.
He was speaking at the Barbados Standard Institution Visibility Conference on Wednesday. Monkeypox vaccines are not cheap at all. That was the statement from Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPA, Dr. Joy St. John, who says they are attempting to have access to standby vaccines if needed in the Caribbean. Sunil Lala reports.
Executive Director of CARPA, Dr. Joy St. John, says the agency will soon be in discussion with member states about procuring at least some monkeypox vaccines if needed, but notes that even a drop in the bucket of vaccines would cost a hefty sum.
We had heard some prices about what could possibly be the number of doses put aside, and it was quite disturbing, the amount of money that it was.
Dr. St. John says one vaccine has been estimated to be upwards of US $100 per vaccine, and for people without smallpox vaccines, 2 monkeypox vaccines would be required.
I had heard something around $100 US a dose. So for most people, especially in the age group where it has been prevalent in this global outbreak, you will need 2 doses.
But monkeypox vaccines similar to COVID-19 vaccines are not easy to get, with even Health Minister Terence Dialsing outlining a similar sentiment over the weekend. Despite this, the CARPA director is not too concerned of any massive spread in the region.
The way we see things developing, we do not expect any real, how to put it, establishment of monkeypox, either in one country or more than one country. Yes, we expect importations.
But the vaccines are seen to be very effective against the monkeypox virus.
Research has been shown in the past that it's 85% effective. Therefore, there's a 15% likelihood that you can still get monkeypox.
CARPA says it will continue discussions with member states on the possibility of procuring some vaccines for the virus.
In Guyana, Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says medical laboratory personnel will receive training to test for monkeypox. On Wednesday, he told the press that medical personnel received training from the Pan American Health Organization recently, and they will pass on that training to others.
And we have organized a training for laboratory staff from different regions of Guyana to get them more acquainted with monkeypox, how to identify, how to diagnose, and when we diagnose, how to take samples so that we can do the PCR testing. So that training is going to happen tomorrow, and we have representatives from each of the regions who would be participating. The training would be conducted by one of our staff at the National Public Health Reference Lab, who herself would have had training by PAHO WHO in Jamaica. So she brings to Guyana that experience of how to do these testing and what are the protocols that we should be observing.
In news further afield, at least 5 people have died after an earthquake struck in northern Philippines. Although it did not generate a tsunami warning, government seismologists fear the worst might be yet to come. Aftershocks are expected to persist for days. Al Jazeera has the details.
A centuries-old bell tower crumbling as a magnitude 7.0 earthquake strikes the Philippines' northern provinces. It sent people out of their homes and buildings and into the streets. The tremor was felt all the way to the capital Manila, 300 kilometers to the south, where metro train operations were disrupted.
Of course I was afraid because we didn't feel that much shaking with previous quakes, but with this one the impact was really strong. We felt it on the 11th floor. There were items that fell down, so we panicked a bit, but we managed to calm ourselves.
In severely affected areas, small buildings caved, walls crumbled, and historic structures gave in. The earthquake cracked open concrete roads and triggered landslides.
Landslides are a problem, especially not only for earthquakes, but
during rain. So we have to make sure that areas that are affected by landslide and starting or incipient landslide should be avoided.
Let them do their work.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. opted not to travel to the region, which is where his hometown is located. But he assured victims of the national government's continuing efforts to help them recover from the disaster.
The earthquake that struck northern Philippines did not generate a tsunami warning, but government seismologists warn while the worst may be over, aftershocks are expected to persist for days.
In sports, World Athletics plans to introduce a repechage round to all individual track events from 200 meters to 1500 meters, including the hurdles. In a release, World Athletics states, quote, "In the new repechage format, athletes who do not qualify by place in round 1 heats will have a second chance to qualify for the semifinals by competing in a repechage heats." End quote. The governing body explains that this will, quote, "replace the former system of athletes advancing through fastest times in addition to the top placings in the first round heats." It says, quote, "These events will now have 4 rounds. Round 1, repechage round, semifinals, and the final," end quote. Repechage for the 100-meter race was not included because the event already has preliminary heats in place. The pressure of the Duckworth-Lewis revised total toppled the Windies' batting in the rain-affected third and final one-day international against India at the Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago.
India won the toss and decided to bat on a sunny Wednesday morning. Shikhar Dhawan and Shubman Gill scored 113 for the first wicket before Dhawan departed for 58. The rains came for the first time just before noon, but when play resumed, Gill was not deterred, scoring 98 not out from 98 balls. The aggressive Shreyas Iyer entered and raced to 44 when the showers came a second time, with India at 225 for the loss of 3. That interruption meant the Windies required 257 from a maximum of 35 overs for victory, according to the Duckworth-Lewis method. They were set back immediately, reeling at 0 for 2. A 47-run stand between Shea Hope and Brandon King was the only show of promise. Both men top scored with 42 each, the Windies eventually surrendering on 136 all out in 26 overs. Yuzvendra Chahal bagging 4 wickets for 17 runs. The T20 series is up next, with the first match bowling off at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy in Tarouba on Friday at 10:30 a.m. local time. Off the pitch, Gold Medal Electricals, one of India's leading electrical manufacturing companies, today announced that it will be the title sponsor of the upcoming 5-match T20 International Series between India and the West Indies. According to a release from Cricket West Indies, the series will be branded as the Gold Medal T20 Cup, with the first match scheduled to be played on Friday 29th July 2022. Trinidad and St. Kitts will host the first 3 T20Is, with the remainder of the series being played in Florida, the USA. As the title sponsor, the Gold Medal brand will have a prominent presence. Its logo will be part of the integrated logo unit of the series. It will also be seen on the pitch mat, the perimeter boards, the presentation boards, and the winning trophy. The matches will begin at 10:30 a.m. and will be telecasted live on FanCode and DD Sports in India and ESPN Caribbean in the West Indies.
And that's the news on PBC Jamaica. Follow us on all our social media pages at PBC Jamaica. Remember, we are the People's Station.